Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Top Agent Commercial Wednesdays. This is one of my favorite topics, and if you're a residential or commercial agent, this should be one of yours too. As everyone knows, we're going through a very difficult and challenging and changing time right now. But one of the good things is there's always opportunities, and I would always say, with the silver tsunami that's coming about, many people can transact and change their commercial real estate, move it because the management is not as hard. But what happens if you get a business that you need to manage, lead? There's no groups that you can really hire to go run your business for you. Really, you sell your business or you talk to experts that we're going to have about what your business can do, what you can do with it, how you can exchange it or sell it, or maybe even getting some expertise to manage it with some consulting help. And that's why we have Earl Kemper and George Wellmer to help share the business brokerage industry, the M&A, but the technology behind it and how to really get into a larger networking world. So Earl, George, thank you for being on here at Top Agent Nation Commercial Wednesdays and helping everyone really demystify business brokerage, M&A, right? You hear all these terminology. I don't think people understand it, but from my experience, most people send the most referrals to business brokers because it is not that easy. It is not that well known. And it really is a mystery, even to, I would even say, commercial agents. It really is a business in itself or an industry in itself. So, Earl, if you don't mind sharing your background and a little of what you do.
Sure. Thank you, James. I appreciate it. So I guess the way to kind of look at this is my background started out as being a business owner. I owned an insurance agency with 700 agents across the country, and then I owned a financial advisory firm that was back in the 90s, 570 million in assets, was quite a bit. And so those businesses I sold, and about 43 years ago, I began doing business coaching. And as a result of doing that business coaching, James, number of the businesses I would work with would be looking for an exit strategy. So the natural thing at that point, at least years ago, was I would charge a very simple fee to help them get their business sold. Then at one point, I sat down with someone that was a business broker, and I had charged like $30,000 to help this client, and they made $1 million. So I thought, maybe I should change my business model just a little bit here so that I can actually benefit from deals that close. And so we do a lot of deals, average about 17 million a deal. A lot of our deals are coming as a result of referrals. So I always like to tell the story. I was working with a dentist. They had a $4 million business. They came to us for coaching. And as we started working with them, they were a little bit skeptical and said, 15, 20% growth a year would be good for me. I said to them, if you could double your business in 3 years or less, would you like to go after it? And they said, I'm very skeptical, but I'd be crazy not to. So we did. 18 months later, 4 million became 8.8. Their profit went up 6 times from what it was when we started. And then they decided they wanted to buy offices and practices, 5 more. We then grew the business to 36 million and had them exit their entire company 7.5 years later. That's a really good connection for us. And we had a 20% referral fee that we paid, James, to the individual who made that referral. And we're doing the same thing to this day. People refer business to us, and that's what we do. So we refer a business that's referred to us for business coaching. We'll give them 20% of the coaching fee. A business referred to us for valuations, we'll do the same thing. There's about 18 business services we can offer. And as we've done that, we've had to get more and more automated. And so the combination of the 3 of us here, George being very high level on the tech side of things is very important to what we're doing and what we will be doing in the future. And James, as you know, we are recruiting real estate business brokers, those that are licensed in real estate. And we also have an entity in place to be able to recruit various business brokers that are non-licensed. Those that are already happy where they are, we are mentoring, or we're getting into referral relationships with those brokers where we may bring them some deals. We have a lot of buyers available in our database, and we also have a number of people who are looking to sell. So whether it be in the areas of coaching, business brokerage, or even franchising, those are the things that we spend quite a bit of time on. So I'll turn that over to George so he can share about what he does with excellence, and look forward to continually working with George and you, James.
And thank you, Earl, for that, because I know, kind of breaking it down into what business brokerage is. And you mentioned licensed, unlicensed, franchises. So a lot of people really, it's all over the place. I always say the real estate industry was the Wild West. Commercial is what you can negotiate, but even business brokerage goes a step beyond that. And I'm glad you brought that up. Even in business brokerage, as niche and unique as it is, it's not immune of using technology and evolving in technology. So George, can you kind of share your background and why the heck did you want to set up a business brokerage technology platform? If you can share, and maybe a little what it can do.
Yeah, so my background is I was in banking, and then after banking, I did a roll-up of sunglass manufacturers. After that, I created a company that was automating valuations for SBA lenders, so banks. And then while I was doing these valuations for these banks, I was interacting with business brokers. And business brokers were telling us, we don't have systems. We don't have systems. We're managing everything from Excel, and we can't grow our practice because it's so hard to manage your business from Excel. So we built Tupelo. My brother and I founded the company and built Tupelo. And then in the course of like 3-ish years, we've scaled it to close to 1,000 brokers across the country. I think last year alone, we had over $1 billion in transactions of SMB M&A transactions that went through Tupelo. The thing is, with selling a business, it's a very complex, bumpy process. Some of these referrals that Earl's talking about, it could be a year, 2 years before they actually sign up with you, with the broker to transact. You need a system in place to track those referrals, to track your interactions with them, and to stay top of mind to these business owners. And Tupelo does a really good job at that. And then once you get this business owner to actually list their business with you, you need systems in place. And we have a lot of like fancy tech that can do that, to do automated valuations, to prepare your marketing materials, known as a SIM, confidential information memorandum. We help get that listing posted to the various different public marketplaces so you can find buyers. And then when buyers come in, we actually vet those buyers for you, automate the NDA process, and then we have data rooms and everything like that inside the system so you can successfully and confidentially transact that business. Because confidentiality in the space is huge. A lot of these business owners don't want their names getting out until the final hour of the transaction, and we really help the broker be able to execute on that type of stuff.
That's a very important comment, George, because one of the things that we've learned over and over again is the businesses that are the largest are off-market deals. They don't want their employees to know what's going on. They don't want any of their competitors to know what's going on. And so it's very, very important in the way in which you do business with these folks, because, this can be a very litigious business. And James, I think that's one of the uniquenesses when you're talking about listing real estate, whether it's luxury, residential, or commercial. It's pretty normal in most cases that everybody and their dog knows that business that is a commercial sale, everybody knows it's being sold. A residence, they know it's being sold. A business, we got to be very, very careful. That's where you get into those litigious issues. And you've got to be very careful to get numbers right, because a lot of times, and we have a CFO on hand and accountants, because you got to get that EBITDA number right, or you've got to get the right information put together so that the proper multiple is being addressed for the value of that business.
Earl, I love that you said it, because residential, if you're a good agent, you want to expose it as wide and as large as possible. In commercial, it is true, but a lot of times, depending on the real estate, they kind of hide it. But in business broker, it's almost all hidden, because it would hurt and impact. Let's say if it's a restaurant or a service, that if they thought they were going to sell it, some of their vendors and clients may terminate. Maybe sometimes they say, if you sell your company, we terminate our contract in the lease, right? Some people are getting very sophisticated now that they want options if you sell their company or merge the company or do something that you, the individual that won the business, that maintained the business, is not there anymore. So Earl, I love what you brought up, and I love tech, George, with this, because of with tech and how you did the API. We can go deeper into it, would really share. But Earl, can you share, how, if somebody wanted to get into this business, what courses do you, and I know Ashley's here, your right-hand lady that shares and does it. Can you share a little bit about, the programs that you're putting on and the meetings, and it's open for people to join and contribute?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One is that we have our websites, and then on our websites, there are some videos that I have posted for free. They're CEO of Empowered Business Brokers and Empire International. So people can go to that, and Ashley will put that in the chat for everyone. And the idea behind that is that we want people to understand that one of the keys is business owners many times do not really know what their business is worth. So they got this grandiose idea, they're going to sell it for, let's say, $10 million, and it's not worth more than 6.5. So they're faced with a choice at that point, and that choice is to either sell it at 6.5 if that's what it's worth, or grow it to 10 and then sell it. So we have some videos that talk about the importance of getting the business to the true value that the individual wants. I think that's a critical component that gets overlooked. We also have, how do you get buyers? See, one of the keys to being really strong in business brokerage and M&A on larger deals is have ready-made buyers. We have something north of $15 billion worth of buyers. Well, how do we have those? Is that we're constantly talking to people who are interested in buying businesses. And you get a questionnaire together and you get through to them as to industry specifics in those. So we do trainings, James, on how to do that. The other is you want to build a pipeline. I've been doing a strategic alliance course. I did one on the 9th, and I'm going to do another one on the 23rd, because building the pipeline of potential sellers is best received through other advisors and B2B relationships. So we have a training on how to do that. And then I always believe in courses that IBBA has available, and we send people there. And then we also have a 4-hour training. It's right on our website, James, 4-hour training on whether you might want to consider being a business broker or not. We don't want people to jump into this if they really don't want to deal with everything associated with it. And then we have one that's 4 days that's kind of the fundamentals of business brokerage. So there's a lot of tools out there. The other thing we do is if we have people who are relatively new to the industry, we will mentor them. And that's another level of training. So we'll mentor them and do deals with them, and or we'll be meeting with them on a every other week basis to help them to learn the business.
Earl, I see some people from Mexico and others speaking. So can you share a little bit about, how and could you teach others, in different languages? Because businesses are abroad. And I think a lot of good businesses, you get the concept. I always like to use Starbucks, right? When
Yeah.
Howard Schultz, he was just sitting in a cafe in France, and he goes in Paris. Hey, this is pretty good. We should bring it. And now it's one of the biggest industries in America. So can you go on maybe different languages and
Yeah,
businesses
well,
abroad?
I speak no other languages, so that doesn't work very well. But I will tell you what is coming to the forefront is AI, right? And so every single course that we have, we're in process. This is not complete as yet, but there's like 20 to 25 languages that we're looking at creating our stuff in. And so that is something that can be done via AI. A lot of my courses, I don't actually even present myself. I have a AI that represents who I am and looks like me, sounds like me, and all that stuff. And so that's easy when I do that. If I've got it in English, I just change it to Spanish. And so the training is now Spanish. And I think more and more people are going to be doing this. I'm very heavily involved using AI, James, in a lot of our social media posts, in a lot of our course development, in a lot of our communication and training. And I'm sure George is as well in that world, because I don't know how today you can be in technology and not have AI all over you.
George,
Yeah,
if you could add on that, I'd love to hear what you're doing with tech and AI.
yeah. So AI is like integral. It's integrated throughout our whole entire platform, and it's specifically made for the industry. So like one of the things we see with brokers when they come into the space, they're like, okay, I see all these different AI tools out there. What do I use? And we can say like, listen, we built our own AI, proprietary AI that's made specifically for business brokers. So whether it's transposing financial statements. So a lot of times when you're working with a seller for the first time, you need to get access to their financial statements to do a valuation of their business to understand it. We have AI that'll actually spread your financial statements, put it into the system, and do add backs for you, like Earl's talking about for EBITDA and seller discretionary earnings, which I don't know how deep we want to go there. And then it'll calculate like a valuation. And then when it comes time to present that business confidentially to the market, you have to prepare marketing material. And people are spending thousands and thousands of dollars to build a single marketing package. And in our software, it makes the marketing package for you. And then in terms of like logic, when buyers are inquiring upon your listings or you're sending these listings out to prospective buyers, you need to be able to vet these buyers to make sure that they're high quality buyers and have enough cash that can do that. And we have AI that's able to vet these buyers for you. So you're not calling up all these buyers all the time and asking them, do you have enough cash? Do you have enough cash? Are you a good fit? The system does this stuff for you. So we really see our users be able to bring businesses to market quicker because of the AI we have in place, and sell businesses faster because of the AI we have in place.
Yeah, and something else we've done, George, in relation to that, and we should team up more on this, is we also created a back office system for that. And so we call it the Business Brokers Professional Services for Deal Flows. So anytime somebody is looking at their deal flow, the AI is very important, but also having some people working properly as a back office to support those AI tools is, I think, a critical component. And so the Business Broker Deal Flow Professional Services does that. And I think that our team has basically looked at that the same way you would a transaction coordinator in real estate, but we're calling it essentially like a deal coordinator and providing that service. So I think we could team up on some things on that. Love to talk to you more about that. That's why we have these calls. And James and I have talked some about the different things that we're trying to do together and how it involves you as well. So very excited about this network that is being developed through Renaissance and being developed through people like the three of us.
Yeah, I think like Earl's bringing home like a really good point here too. Like I fundamentally think that AI will not replace your jobs. I fundamentally do not think that. What it's going to do is going to make you guys so much more efficient. So we have people on the Tupelo platform right now that are selling close to 50 businesses a year by themselves. And
Yeah.
their commissions they're making on this are north of like 3 million, quite frankly. And they're able to do this because of the systems and technology and AI that's in place. So it allows that one broker to be able to expand their reach to help, almost hundreds of business owners on an annual basis.
Yeah, that's an outstanding approach.
I'll take a little break because I know we have some questions. Mike O'Mara, do you want to ask your question? Then we'll have Max ask his question. Mike? O'Mara,
Hey,
there you
Jim.
go.
Hi, Earl and George. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
My question was, I dropped it in the chat, and I have a motive for this question, but I'll ask the question first. Do you advise and consult on the exit with estate planning and taxes, specifically for capital gains?
Yes, the answer to that is I am always working with key people to make sure that we cover that ground. If you go to our website, one of the emphases that we have is on every deal that we do where capital gains could be a significant issue. We want to team up with the best possible relationships to provide capital gain reduction or elimination strategies. So we've done a lot of work with, DSTs, there's a couple of different terms for that, deferred sales trust, or it could be a Delaware structured trust. We've done some work with people when it comes to mineral rights and tax savings ideas, conservation kinds of things. There's a lot of possibilities there. You probably are already aware of them, and that may be why you bring up your question, Mike. But certainly, we're always looking for the best relationships for that. We've got some great ones, but we're always looking for more.
Go ahead, Mike.
Well,
Go share what
great.
you are.
Jim knows where I'm coming from. I'd like to schedule a call with you and
Sure.
discuss opportunity zones with you as an alternative for deferring capital gains. That's kind of
I am familiar with opportunity zones and have been looking for an expert, so that's perfect.
Yep, that's who I am. That's where I come from. So I'll follow up with you offline. And George, if that would be a resource you would like to talk about, I'd welcome that as well. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
And that's the thing why we have these is collaboration. We don't know it all, finding the right people, finding the different circles and networks we can all plug into. And I always have to say using the tech, because we want to use the people with the platforms and the technologies and always evolve it and not really staying in a silo, right? As residential has one group, commercial has another group, maybe there's a leasing group, then business broker, but it's all siloed. That later on we'll tease people and share a little kind of on George and Earl, what we're all doing, putting it all together, right? So it's a larger world, sending a lot more referral. But Max, you have a question?
Yeah, as a commercial real estate broker, many of the times I run into some business brokers, and we try to evaluate the business as far as the dollar that is asked for, and we look at the profit and loss statement, and I see that the numbers that is in there, when you put the ratios for, say, getting a loan or whatever the proper way of looking at a business, whether this dollar amount that I'm spending on this particular business, is it going to be able to service the debt that is going to incur? And many of the times, the people that I ask that, they say, well, there's a way, and I have to explain it to you. It's going to take about 4, 5, 6 hours and all that. And I never got the satisfaction of getting an answer. Is there any way that both of you, George and Earl, that can give me a basic rundown of how do you justify a business that is on the profit and loss statement says, it can afford and can service $1 million, but when the valuation asking price or rather asking sale price is $2 million, which I know is not going to be able to service. How can you, justify that?
You want to answer that first, George, or you want me to?
Well, if you have a business that's overvalued, like obviously that's going to be a tougher thing to sell and get financed through the Small Business Administration. Let's use the SBA as an example. You can get creative with various types of financing, Max. Like sometimes the seller has to finance a portion of the transaction if they really want to achieve the valuation that you're like laid out there. If they can find a buyer that's willing to pay that $2 million price, but the business is worth $1 million, the seller has to finance a piece of that transaction 9 times out of 10, unless there's some sort of asset that's backing the transaction, think like real estate or something like that. So seller financing is usually how those deals will get done, where it's grossly overvalued to what a bank would be willing to lend on. I don't know, Earl, do you have any other commentary around that?
Yeah, no, agreement, first of all, with what you've said. I think you have to get creative in how are they going to pay for the opportunity. But another part of being creative, a lot of what has been done historically, especially in the last 5 to 8 years, has been earnouts. So an objective that you might look at, and depends on the size of the business, and that some of the smaller businesses, sometimes it's harder to make this happen. But an earnout might be where they'll pay 70% today of whatever it is that someone's asking, and they may or may not be any seller financing or mezzanine or some other kind of financing. But that being said, what could happen then is the other 30% could be earned out based on some very specific results that the business has to get going forward. The other assumption in that might be that the seller of the business is staying on board for that period while the earnout is involved, so that they have skin in the game, so to speak, in making it happen. But I will tell you where most of the errors happen with that is really at the beginning. What I mean by that is the numbers that you get that are representing a value, sometimes the financials are not correct, right? Especially the smaller businesses, although I have seen larger businesses, this is true as well. So we're looking at the financials, and you may find, they're under valuing as much as overvaluing. What I mean by that is, what if they have personal expenses, quote, hidden in their profit and loss? So it looks like they have a $500,000 EBITDA, but they really had a $750,000 EBITDA, because the expenses that they're showing as an expense are really not an expense. Also, there can be situations where there are non-reoccurring expenses that should not be calculated, or sometimes they throw equipment costs instead of it being a balance sheet issue, they're showing it as a profit and loss issue, knowing full well they're not going to buy that piece of equipment in the future again. So it's undervalued as much as it is overvalued. They're very, very consistently inconsistent that way. So when I'm sitting down with a business, I want to know what the true situation is with the business. And then, did they pay the owner? Is the owner an operator? Are they in a role in the company? And the role that they're in the company deserves a salary, but they're not paying that salary. When somebody comes on board, if EBITDA is $1 million, and they should be paying somebody $200,000, that should come out of that EBITDA and in the value of the business. And I could go on and on and on, Max, but I want you to just get a perspective, the importance of working with a business broker and working with our firm as an example. We have a CFO on hand in our office. We crunch all the numbers. We do not take anything face value. In addition to crunching the numbers, we're going to look at things like developing a business plan, because it can also enhance the value that someone's willing to pay if they see potential. Right now, I've got a Medicare school. They've got about 10 million of EBITDA. There's offers at about 140 million. But the reason the offers are so high is the services that can be ancillary from this business are significant. A buyer can quickly add $5 million to the bottom line, right?
Yeah, but would he be able to use that potential into the financing of that particular?
Not even a dollar amount of that. That would you go SBA, first of all? Understand, it's not going to be SBA. So you're going to look at all kinds of different ways to finance hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's not the same game. So a multiple that is low, you're probably going to just have to get a basic loan, right?
Yeah.
But if you got a very significant multiple and you're talking about 9, 10, 12 multiples, those things can be financed, but you got to be more creative in that financing, Max, because it isn't just going to go, hey, I got this loan I'd like to get from US Bank or, you know, something like that. It's not going to happen at that level. Right.
Yeah.
So we may have to have some equity and debt involved in the transaction. There's all kinds of ways to structure deals. But the most important thing is do not take anything at face value.
Yeah.
It just never serves you well. They're either undervalued or overvalued. Seldom is it correctly valued. Is that helpful?
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
George, would you like to add something? Because I know you were going to say something. I don't know if Earl covered it or not, but you know, what would you like to
No,
add?
I mean, this in itself is probably a webinar that's probably on Earl's website for like 3 hours of how you calculate seller discretionary earnings, how lenders lend on these transactions. I mean, what the general business out there is a traditional business, and their historical financial statements paint a pretty good picture of how a would-be buyer can buy that business. Most of these like liquor stores that are daycares that someone's buying, you can't fetch a huge multiple because there's not these 100x growth potential on an annual basis. Usually these are, 5% what they're growing over a year. So what the business has done in the past is what a bank's going to lend on it. And what they're going to lend on is debt service coverage. So effectively, if you're solely relying on an institution to fund that transaction, there's a synthetic cap with the debt service coverage of what it can be lended on. And usually that's 1.25.
That's right.
George, one quick question. Your valuation platform, is that available standalone, or you got to go through some? No.
And part of Tupelo, you got to sign up for the package.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of valuation packages out there, but if you can simplify things by being part of an integrated system, that's going to be the way to go as much as you can.
Will do.
And Max and everyone, this is why we're putting it all together, expertise, knowledge of people to go to get an understanding. Instead of sometimes buying all these tech tools that you may not use, is partner with the right people or contract out so they could run the analysis, get you the ballpark. And then, I always say with business brokerage, since it's even wilder than the Wilder West, I mean, it's really savage wildland where it's not even built. You got to know the games, because I know when I was in buying coin-op laundry, you don't trust the numbers. You trust the water and the utilities because you have to run it.
Yeah.
Some people will actually put money in to their bank accounts, pretending like they're putting deposits to build up the right number. You got to look at the utilities. You can't fake those, right? Or if you really fake them, you're really nuts. Or there's other things that people do, selling a bunch of coupons before they sell the business for cash. I mean, you really need to talk to an expert. And I love what Earl said. A lot of times where the market is changing, you said it really well, knowing when they're overpriced, but knowing when they're cheap. Some people, because it's not widely marketed, it's private or secret. I bought some companies one-time valuation. So I was like, I'll buy it, because I know, and it was a property management company. I bought two of them because it was really, I was working with the attorneys or CPAs, and they said, look, their kids, one's a doctor, one's a lawyer. They don't want to run mom's property management company. Do you want to buy it? And going through this structure because of just this inside friends, right? We all have this wanting to sell the business because they don't want to market it. They don't want to put it out there. They just want to get it off their books. And the parents or grandparents, they loved it, but the kids or grandkids goes, I don't want this. And it's not as easy as real estate. They just want to give it to somebody and get some cash and go away. So these are the exciting things, but this is why you do need to work with experts, because real estate is kind of in a more stable box. Business brokerage, oh boy, I've seen, and why this interests me, because I always say I hated when immigrants came over and they were sold a bunch of magic beans, or they were sold and the deal was good. The problem is the lease was going to go up 3 times right after they sold it, because the lease within less than a year went there. So can you, Earl and George, share some pitfalls why you need to talk to experts, and don't just try to finesse it. Like you were saying, like certain industries, it's very litigious. You're going to be called in court, and they're going to be this old grandma or this old lady or somebody that you scammed, right? And it doesn't look good. So Earl and George, do you want to share why you need to work with an expert and maybe some horror stories?
I'll let George start and then I'll jump in.
Yeah, I think Earl's actually hit on a lot of these points really well to start off. Like, one, if we look at just the valuation, like a number is a number, but you need that backstory, that qualitative information to build that story, paint that picture that you can not only sell to the business owner, but sell to the business buyer. And it sounds like what he's talking about, like his CFO on staff and his team does an extremely good job at doing that. Because you effectively, like, you can look at a financial statement and you can say EBITDA is this, or seller discretionary earnings is, Y. Let's add a 3 times multiple to it. But that only gets you so far. You need to be able to justify that number. Like, why does it fetch that number? And sure, historicals will, back that up for like historical transaction multiples, but really that narrative of like why this business is a great business, that takes experience to write and to be able to pull that information out of the business owner. Because a lot of times when you're talking to a business owner, they're saying, my valuation is $1 million. Why is your valuation $1 million? Oh, my buddy sold a similar business and like his was $1 million, so mine should be $1 million. Okay, great. Let's dive in to try to figure out why your business is worth $1 million. How can we get you $1 million? And there's strategies in there to help you do that. So that's the sell side of it, I think. The other side is the buy side experience to it. So when you sell a business, especially if it's a good business, let's say it has like 500,000 in seller discretionary earnings or north of that, you're going to get hundreds of inquiries from prospective buyers that want to buy this business. Now, I can guarantee the vast majority of those inquiries are not good buyers, quite frankly. They're tire kickers out there. They saw on Instagram or social media from some influencer that they can buy a business with no money down. Like, they're not going to buy these businesses, quite frankly. So you don't want to waste your time as a business broker and an owner, quite frankly, to try to sell that business to these people who will never be able to buy that business. You'll drag your client, the seller, through the mud, quite frankly. And then when it comes time to closing, their expectations are going to be all sort of mismanaged. The deal's going to fall through because you as a broker didn't do the proper job to vet these buyers coming in. So on both sides of the transaction, it helps to speak with an expert to like understand that narrative. And then when it comes time to like working with buyers, you want to make sure that you're working with top quality buyers and spending your energy there. Because if you're not, you're going to spend a whole lot of time trying to find a seller, bring that business to market, and then it's going to all fall through. And for better or for worse, this industry is based on your income is based on successfully selling companies. If you fail at selling companies, you don't make any money. So it's very, very, very important to be able to have experts in every aspect of this loop so you can get paid. Because if you're not getting paid, you're not going to want to be in this profession.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, on average, on deals that are of significance, 10 million and above, 5 million and above even, you're going to find that there's probably 9 different contracts in those businesses that are already in place doing something. Could be an equipment lease, could be a property lease. They could be just so simple as that they have an ongoing lease month to month, but it has some kind of clause in it that they didn't know was there, or they've got a 5-year renewal, or they've got this, or they've got that, or when the lease is going to change, the ownership's going to change hands, it changes everything in the way they're doing business. And they don't know that that could be happening. So one of the things as a broker, we got to go through and find out all the contractual obligations that might be out there between the owner and someone for something. You also got to be careful if there was any kind of conversations that were verbal or things in writing that promised some team member ownership in the future. And that comes back to bite the future buyers. But the other piece of it is that you can run into situations where businesses are very, very focused on a customer or 5 customers, and you lose 2 of them and the business drops off immediately. And you look at it and you say it's properly valued, and on paper it is, but nobody asks the question as to whether the customers that they have are going to stay. If it's a business where there could be a change in location based on the sale, there's issues to consider as to whether they'll be willing to go to the new location. I can make a list of 150 things, James, but the issue at hand is always everything that is apparent is one thing. It's all the things that are not apparent that you got to go and dig. And you got to make sure you're not missing any of those. This is where commercial real estate people who have done deals have some understanding of those kinds of issues, but have to take it to a whole nother level of those issues, or they can get themselves in litigious issues quickly, very quickly. And, it's good that they do what they do with business brokers, because also sometimes business brokers don't know the commercial end of things as well as they do. So it's we all need each other, James, and to cover all the bases. Because if we don't cover those bases, at some point it can come back to haunt us.
Well, Earl, and this is why many of us, all leaders, technology, everyone else, building kind of this global platform, connecting to many different trade groups. And we hope that this evolves into, more transparency, clarity, comps, relationships. So the bad actors, and I know in business brokerage, too many horror stories that your hard-earned money brought to a country, all paid all cash, because you don't need a bank to give you a value. It's cash, you know what? And then all of a sudden your inventory is gone, or this is bad. I mean, it's just so bad that I want to get involved in and really protect the consumer. And a lot of times once the money's stolen or taken away, it's hard to come back and sue them. And these people that do it are very clever on doing this, right? I think sometimes they should write a book. They could actually be the best business brokers in the world, but instead they like to commit fraud, right? And it's terrible, right? As we're saying. So a lot of times commercial working with business brokerage, because a lot of the businesses are in the inside, is very powerful. And they pass it and work well as a team. And a lot of times residential, where we all say stay within your expertise and knowledge to pass the referral, work a deal. But a lot of times people always say, what's the value do you bring? How much? And then Max just brought up, how much does it cost? Who wants to pay for all that technology that you use once or maybe twice in a year? It's expensive. It's not cheap. And all these research, the worst is like a landmine. You may not hit the landmine walking through because you get away with it. You say, I got away with it. I've been doing it, until you get into a massive lawsuit because of your arrogance, without the tools, without the tech, without the track record. Court is going to ask for you. What's your files? How long have you been in it? they're going to check you out first and you go, oh, I didn't do any of this. You're going to lose, especially if it's a little old lady from Pasadena or something, right? You're going to lose. I mean, I've sat in court watching it in depot and I said, oh, when we know, we just settle. We just get the heck out of Dodge and we just get rid of this. But having experts within the group is so important. Getting knowledgeable. And I would say any commercial broker and even residential is to upgrade the skill and take the basics so you can know where to go because you are going to encounter it. I always say most people, right, Earl, and George, they are going to encounter business owners, and especially right now, times are tough. People are trying to sell everything off, but they're selling it all off at crazy things because they don't want to lose their money and all sorts of stuff. It is good to start talking to them early, positioning them. And like you said, getting creative, and private equity companies loves to buy this in middle market deals, but there are smaller investors that like startups. And let's kind of end this on licensed, unlicensed, and franchises, because franchises is such a hot topic, right? And we all know there's good and bad franchises, right? And it's tough. It's a whole industry in itself. So maybe George, you want to talk a little bit about franchises, then I'll pass it to Earl. Franchises kind of versus non-franchises. What is that?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of like the business broker space, there's some franchises out there, really like 3 of them, but for like businesses that are being sold, like we see a lot of franchises go through our platform. And a lot of times if you're a potential broker working with a franchise, you want to make sure that the franchise doesn't have a sale process in place. So you're wasting a lot of time when on the back end, this stuff's already happening. So I think it like really depends there on like where you want to go, and just being clear, like we said this whole entire time, with the business owner and yourself while you're validating the information, and making sure expectations are aligned from day one.
Can I share my screen?
Please, Earl.
Everybody see that all right? So the idea that I always want to bring to the forefront is, on the one hand, on franchises, there could be already established franchises that are in place that people can buy. And there are a lot of them out there, and we have access to a little over 300 of them through our organization. However, another thing that is happening more and more today, whether it be on a national or international basis, is you might have a business model that you put in place and it's working well for you for 1 or 2 locations. And now the idea is, could it be franchisable, right? So what we've done is we've got a whole system in place where we will do an assessment as to whether a business should be franchised. There's legal framework for franchising that has to be put in place. We have those attorneys in place. There's usually a need to create something with redundancy or the ability to duplicate, kind of like the McDonald's idea that every time somebody is a customer, they're treated exactly the same way. In a great franchise, there is a operational and training approach that it should be put in place, an onboarding approach. And then there's the marketing and sales. So when you're looking at that, the power of that is you might have a business that you own today that has 1 or 2 locations, and maybe it sells for 4 to 6 multiples if you're fortunate to have that size of business. And when you franchise it and you get it to 25 or 50 or 100 different locations, now you have something that could be 12 multiples, 15 multiples of that same business model. And you're making some amount of money on the fees associated with the franchise to sign up. You're making some kind of money also on the ongoing royalties of the business, and you structure all that to where it makes sense for the buyer. It makes sense whether they're buying a location or a territory or a region or a nation or it's international. These things are all very important going forward, James and George as well. And, one of the things that I would say along those lines that we were talking about earlier, we want to help people accelerate their deal flow, maximize their deals, and really tailor their deals for their clients. And I'll just put this up here also as a quick snapshot, James, so that we can address it. I thought that you might ask about franchising, so I was a little bit prepared at least to touch on that. And you'll see our websites and a phone number. You can text me, and also here's a QR code. So I'll leave that up for just a short while. But franchising is the future in my mind, James, especially opportunities for international businesses to come into the US and vice versa. And you may have some comments on that as well.
George, would you like to add more on this? And then we can kind of end it on really, how do you get into this business?
Yeah, I definitely think franchises are unique, and each franchise that you're dealing with has its own rules and requirements, and you just want to make sure that you understand those before you dive into the space here. Expanding through franchises, Earl sounds like the guy right here that's going to do that all. So I would just leverage, again, like we were saying, those resources that are in this group, so you can speak with the experts to help you get these deals successfully across the finish line.
Yeah, and Earl, you're right. One of the things that makes me excited, because of one company, I had to go through the FDD, the franchise, all that paperwork, and it is fun. So a lot of times, if you travel abroad or you are abroad, concepts here can go into your country. Concepts in your country can come here. Understanding rules and laws, talking to experts. Sometimes it's fantastic. You can raise some capital and create a business, or something's good in another country, but they never thought of coming to the US. You buy the rights or get the rights, right, as the master franchise, showing your capability, or just you're connected somehow, and they say, yeah, we'd love to be in the US if you can show capability and strength. And this is where our Renaissance and our team, with Earl, George, and many others, right? That's what we're putting together. So it's this larger system using technology, finding that, I would say, golden nugget of an opportunity that we can put in. And I'll tell you this, as the AI is changing it, you may not get replaced, but it is going to make the stronger, the weaker, obsolete, as we all know, right? It's not for everyone, but the stronger and more connected, and the people who take this serious as a business, they're going to thrive. They're going to kill it. And those that are just the bottom half are probably going to drop off. So be aware. But this is why you hedge and protect. Maybe you learn about business brokerage. Maybe you learn about franchise, and you buy it, you run it. Because like right now, they need mechanics a lot of times. AIs and robots are not going to do and repair what you have. I have a friend that has a small, shop that does small machinery repair. Nobody's doing that. He has so much business, they got to wait a while so he can fix everything and get the parts. So it's an exciting time to learn this business and maybe even buy it to protect yourself. Or if you travel abroad, bringing concepts to the US. But Earl, final words?
Yeah, I think, the number one thing is there's going to be about 67% of all businesses are going to exchange hands in the next 7 years. That's a huge opportunity, and that's nationwide. I don't know what it is internationally. I should get that number, but I got to believe it's very, very high as well. That's partially baby boomers are transitioning out. And there's just a lot of people that are buying businesses with the goal of selling them in 5 to 7 years and just building them to their highest potential. We want to do everything we can to help people. If you have anyone that you believe could benefit from what we do, we have a little over 100 brokers worldwide. We can introduce different people. We have a number of people who are coming to us on a weekly basis wanting to learn how to become involved in our organization. The information I shared earlier, please contact us. We're excited about working with George and his organization. So I was really glad to have you on this call with us as well. Thank you.
George, final words?
Yeah, excited. This industry is like changing rapidly, and the amount of potential that you can access right now is only going to grow, like Earl was pointing to there. Having the systems in place, having the network in place is going to be huge for successfully helping these business owners sell. So yeah, happy to help in any way possible.
Again, thank you, Earl and George, for joining us on Top Agent Commercial Wednesdays. You know, we're always trying to share the latest and greatest and what you could do to stay in the business, leverage your business, grow some more business with you, collaborate with other individuals, use the technology. And here's a plug for Renaissance. Renaissance, we are kind of putting everyone together, because the good thing is, as long as you've been in the business longer and longer, we all know each other, we all connect with each other, and we want to build a good platform for everyone to share, connect, and like I said, keeping the bad actors out, taking care of our clients, and really playing it forward for the younger generation to learn our business. Because a lot of times, for some reason, they don't want to learn our business. But anyway, everyone, have a great day, great week, and looking forward to seeing everyone on Top Agent Nation Commercial Wednesdays next week. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks so much.